Boys is a brand new comedy that's out this weekend in which I know more about who's producing the movie than I actually know about who's directing the movie. The movie was directed by Gene Stipa. Anybody ever just feel like slapping me because I'm so bad with names on this channel? Yeah, I get it. Either way, this movie is produced by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. You probably know them or recognize their names from a lot of the big comedies over the years, including Superbad, maybe 40-Year-Old Virgin, you know, movies like that. So the basic premise and story of this movie surrounds these three kids, these three sixth graders who get invited to this kissing party. One of the kids has this big crush on some girl that's supposed to be there. The three kids decide to use a drone so that they can get some insight into the teenage girls, and then all of a sudden the drone gets wrecked or it goes missing or blah blah blah. They have to try to figure out a way to get a new drone before the father of one of the kids comes home. So they go off on this big huge adventure to find the new drone and to get to this party, and along the way they get into a little bit of this, they get into a little bit of that, and you know, it's a comedy, and it's a rated R comedy where three sixth graders are talking like adults. Seeing that this is a comedy, I figure the comedy in the movie is where we should start off. Obviously that's the most important thing here. I mean, come on guys, you've been here before, I've been here before, we've all seen enough comedies in our lifetime to know that the number one objective of a comedy is to make us laugh. So where else would we start? You go into a drama to see good drama shit, right? You go into a romance movie expecting to see two people love or bang or whatever they do in romance movies. You go into an action movie, you expect a lot of high octane action. I mean, going into a comedy and not getting comedy is kind of like going into the bathroom, pulling your pants down and sitting on the toilet without taking a shit. You know, it kind of defeats the purpose. In regards to the comedy in this movie, I gotta say, it was consistently good. Not like laugh out loud throughout the whole movie good, but enough belly laughs for me that I found myself enjoying myself while watching it. A lot of the comedy in this movie works because the chemistry between the three young leads works. These three kids, again, can't remember your names. I'm very sorry about that. They were pretty good in this movie. They were very believable as these three lifelong friends who were kind of upset and a little bit scared about the changes that each of them are going through in their own personal lives and whether they can still be friends going forward. In that sense, this movie has a pretty decent message about growing up and growing apart and some of the things you have to do when you get older and some of the maturity that you have to show along the way in order to get to that point. Beyond all that, obviously it's a rated R comedy, so these kids, they cuss and there's a lot of vulgarity involved with this movie, and obviously humor is a very subjective thing, so if that ain't your cup of tea, you might want to find another drink. And when I think about these kids and the way they talk to each other and the way they talk to other people in this movie, I'm just kind of like, yep, that's me and my friends, that's how we talk to each other. Maybe we were just a bunch of little shitbags back in the day. Then I realized that I'm like about to turn 27 in another month, and I realized that me and my friends still talk to each other like this, so it's just one of those weird things. Now, the chemistry between the three leads, this movie does not work. It does not happen. Obviously, the more boring parts of the movie would feel even more painful if you weren't in some way rooting for these kids to make it. Pretty cool cameos in this movie that I was not expecting, that I didn't think would show up in this movie, but then they did. They were also very funny additions to the story. This is a movie that has the usual hijinks that you would expect from sixth graders getting into trouble and getting into some shit that's way over their head. It also has plenty of that other humor that you would find in movies like Hangover, you know, where it's just kind of like one crazy thing after another leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and before you know it, the adventure is so much bigger than it was when it first started. The film definitely is shot competently, which is something I suppose I should comment on for people who actually were wondering how good this movie looks. Trust me, it looks competent enough. I mean, you know, it doesn't have like shitty cinematography or anything like that. If that's all you're looking for at this time of year, is a nice, hard R, vulgar, raunchy comedy that reminds you of some of the shenanigans that you got into as a kid and some of the shenanigans you had to give up when you became an adult, well, that's what this movie's here for, and if you like that, I feel like you're gonna like this movie. Not to say that this movie was, you know, the best comedy I've ever seen or anything like that, or that it didn't have problems, because it did. Obviously, the movie follows a lot of familiar and predictable tropes, so a lot of the story that you see in this movie is stuff that you've seen before executed in better movies. The unfortunate thing, when we've had so many comedies and we've had so many movies that have borrowed from other movies over the time, that after a while, some of it blends together and you're just kind of like, is there anything fresh, original, or unique about this? And in terms of that, this movie sometimes does feel a little bit derivative in terms of it does borrow a little bit too heavily from other movies that have come before. I guess that's kind of an unavoidable evil. The pacing in this movie does drag. There are some scenes where the humor comes off as more corny than it does come off as funny. In general, if I were to classify a rated R raunchy comedy as harmless, a lot of people would look at me like, harmless? It's rated R. What are you talking about? What I mean by harmless is that this movie is going to please just enough people for them to say that it's really funny or it's one of the more enjoyable comedies they've seen in 2019. At the same time, it's not groundbreaking groundbreaking, it's not earth-shattering, it's not so laugh-out-loud funny that you won't see better comedies going forward or even in the past. So in that sense, Good Boys was a pretty good time at the movies, and I'm gonna leave this one in the Silver Age for Man of Steel. Alright guys, those are my thoughts on Good Boys. Tell me, have you seen it? What is your favorite comedy of 2019? Put that in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show. Stay tuned for more videos, and as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.